had a business in an area where there were several colored people. And I can honestly say one of my best friends was a colored girl. And as children have no prejudice, we became very close friends. And in her later years, she has become a registered nurse and trying very hard to raise her children in a clean atmosphere. And we have talked now since we both have been married, and it's such a disadvantage to see her children try to grow up healthy in the atmosphere that they have to live in.
A personal relationship and sympathy with a Negro who is trying to improve her circumstances seems to make a difference.
I have found several colored people that I have enjoyed their friendship. I would not let that determine whether I become friend to them by the color of their skin.
Have you heard any rumors?
I had heard several rumors, of which that I have just taken as rumors go. But the one that bothered me most was the fact that the Myers family has moved in to several all-white sections and trying to be the first colored family to move in, to start the other ones to come in, that they have done this before. Now, I believe that if they do come here to cause trouble, then I'm against what they're doing, their principle. But if they're just trying to find a better place to live and to bring up their children, then I'm for them.
There are those who live in Levittown who like it and intend to stay. They have no intention of according the same privilege to the Myers. Some of them find it more comfortable to talk in a group. You're aware that a Negro family has moved into Levittown?
Yes, I heard about it.
What was your reaction?
Dynamite. Dynamite.
What have you done about it?
Well, I guess we just discussed it.
How do you feel about the Myers moving in?
Well, I'm very definitely against it.
Before coming to Levittown, did you have any contact with Negroes?
Well, when I came from a small town where we didn't have any colored people. And at that time I had, I had no feelings either way. But while we were waiting for our house to be built, we lived in Trenton for 9 months. And, well, that was my first contact with them, both in work and going through colored sections to work. And I was very happy I was moving into an all-white community.
Have you ever discussed the Myers at home with your children?
Never before in our house was anything mentioned, pro or con, about colored people, because I feel that they have to be in contact with them to a certain extent, and why should their minds be prejudiced? But since they have moved here, they have heard remarks, and, well, I'm afraid that they are going to dislike the idea. There were colored children in the school my son attended last year for the first time, and he often came home and said there had been trouble between them during the day at school.
It becomes convenient to exaggerate one's own fears and to help a neighbor increase hers.
My boy, he likes sports, and he used to go down there every Saturday with a few of the boys from the neighborhood. And there was an argument that occurred, something real silly. My boy and a colored boy got in an argument. Well, from that time on, for the whole remainder of the summer, the boy was afraid to get down there because the colored boys got a gang together. And every time they would get near my Jimmy, they would beat the devil out of him. I went to the principal and everything about it.
A major factor is fear. Fear of economic loss, loss of status, fear of violence, and fear of intermarriage. Do you think other Negro families will come to Levittown?
Definitely.
Yes.
What do you think will happen?
Well, just what's happening already. I don't know. It's a rumor I read in the paper where they have 2 colored school teachers now in Levittown. So that's just a good example of what is going to happen.
Well, what's wrong with that?
I do not like it. I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And if there's too many colored people around here, I definitely will get out. I'm not thinking well, I don't want her associating with colored people, period.
Well, I'm very definitely against mixed marriages, and that's eventually what it's going to come to. If children are raised together, they're not going to think of anything of marrying together.
Well, I just could not live beside them. I don't feel that they should be oppressed. But I moved here. One of the main reasons was because it was a white community. And that's the only place I intend to live. If I have to leave Levittown, I will do so.
For some Levittowners, the basic issues involved had nothing to do with intermarriage or property values, loss of status, fear of crime, neighborhood decline, or of being in the minority. They saw it as a test of democracy. What was your reaction to the Myers moving in?
Well, I was happy to see this become more of an American community.
There seems to be a large group opposed to the Myers. What would be your attitude toward them?
Well, I would divide... I don't know if there are large groups of people opposed to the Myers. After all, we have some, I don't know, I guess close to 60,000 people in Levittown. Those mobs were never more than 500 or 600. And I think if you'd gone down to the shopping center any night at the time the mobs were here, you would have seen 10,000 people at the shopping center, while those who were violently opposed to the Myers moving in were engaging in what they were engaging in.
You don't think, then, that a large majority is against Myers moving in?
Well, that's not true offhand. I know some of the immediate neighbors right here who were for the Myers moving in. I wouldn't hazard a guess at what the proportion is that welcomes the Myers and what proportion is opposed to it, but I don't think that's the main issue involved in this case anyway.
What is the main issue?
The main issue is the right of these people to live like Americans as they choose and to be accepted as good neighbors.
What are you going to do about it?
I intend to try to be a good neighbor.
Do you feel that the Myers coming to Levittown will lead to large numbers of other Negroes coming here?
I don't know.
Do you think the Myers will be able to live here comfortably?
I think it'll take a little time, but they will eventually.
Have you heard any rumors about the Myers?
Oh, dozens and dozens of rumors.
What kind?
Oh, that he was being paid by the NAACP, that the Reds were behind it, that the Jews were behind it, that this group and that group was behind it. There were all kinds of rumors. I guess some of them were being spread deliberately, some were just a result of hysteria. There was all kinds of malicious rumors. Some of them were so ridiculous you couldn't see how people could accept them, but in the atmosphere some people did accept them and spread them.
What course do you think the future of Levittown will take?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think Levittown's an island. It's part of the USA, and I think it's going to integrate like the rest of this country is going to integrate.
In Levittown, as elsewhere in America, there are those who believe that the rights and privileges of citizenship belong to all, regardless of their race or color or creed. And there are those who believe in equality, too, but in a somewhat more limited sense.
In my business, whoever's got money and has good credit or wants to pay cash can buy a car. It has no discrimination, color, religion, or any type of that sort.
Has the coming of the Myers affected your home life?
Personally, my home life, it hasn't affected nothing whatsoever. But on the neighbors, they have a right, because the average white person living in Levittown has 4 and 5 children. Well, let's put it this way. If the Levittown is migrated in hordes of Negroes, which they have a right to come here, but if something that happens that way, pretty soon my neighbor will be having a Negro son-in-law or a daughter-in-law. How would that look?
Wasn't Myers within his rights as a citizen to move wherever he pleased?
Well, let's put it this way. Mr. Myers and all the Negroes have a right. I'm no better than them. They're as good as I am. They can go anywhere they want. I mean, they have a God-given rights, and being a good American, they have the rights to the civil rights. They have the right to pursue their happiness. But by the same token, we have mixed communities, and it's a proven fact that those mixed communities are over a third empty. He could have stayed there. He had a beautiful home there. The only reason that Mr. Myers came into Levittown is to show people they could get here. It wasn't that he wanted to come to Levittown, but my personal opinion is this. There is something bigger behind this.
Is that your personal opinion only, or is it a fact?
No, I say it's a fact. And I would tell anybody, I mean, barring nobody. I would tell them in a meeting, including the gentleman that is the head of this committee for bringing Mr. Myers here, I'd tell him.
When did you first hear of Myers moving in?
I heard about Mr. Montana was having coffee in a restaurant where he worked as a utility man, dishwasher, I don't know. It was supposed to be a part-time job, but I've seen him there 7 in the morning till 9 at night, and then the paper says he was an engineer.
Where did you hear it?
That's where I heard it, from the waitresses in there. They asked me, did you see your new neighbors? And I didn't care to discuss it in public.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything.
There you have it, an American community caught suddenly in a moment of crisis. Neighbor set against neighbor as they differ on what should be done about one Negro and his family who have come to share with them the American dream of a better way of life for their children. Many seem convinced that property values must decline when a community or a neighborhood becomes integrated. But studies which have been made prove the opposite to be true. Property values go up, provided there's no wave of panic selling. And even when there is panic, after the situation is stabilized, prices climb back and frequently go even higher than they were when the initial sale to a Negro was made. Does the integration of Negroes into a white community result in a higher rate of crime, violence, or juvenile delinquency? Not at all. Negroes living in predominantly white communities show a lower incidence of crime than the average for the general population. Is intermarriage the ultimate goal of Negroes in seeking to integrate into previously white communities? The studies show that of all the reasons Negroes have for seeking equality of opportunity, intermarriage is the least. And of all the fears that whites express, this is the greatest. Negroes seek only the right to buy or rent the kind of housing on the open market which they can afford. This basic principle of the free enterprise system, of which we're justly proud, is now denied to them in many communities. The exclusion of Negroes from white communities and their restriction to all Negro neighborhoods fixes negative ideas about them which are carried over from generation to generation. These false notions cause the abandonment by the white population of large areas within our great cities at a tremendous cost to the nation. Aided by a prosperous post-war economy, Negroes have held fast to their wartime gains and have sought to improve their lot in life. Advances against discrimination have been made in many fields. A new and much larger Negro middle class has grown up. Able, ambitious, and confident, these families are determined to leave the old, densely packed, segregated neighborhoods, and they're economically able to do it. They have the money to buy their way out of the slums. What happened in Levittown is merely the beginning of what is to follow in communities all over the country during the next few years, as Negroes, like all other Americans, get better education, better jobs, and accumulate more savings. Can we prepare our communities to receive these new neighbors in dignity and peace? Or will we wreck our communities with violence and abandon them in panic? This is the challenge posed for us as Levittowners sum it up for themselves.
I don't think you can take a middle of the stand here. Either you're for them or against them.
I've taken a stand for peace and nonviolence and no intimidation of the Myerses.
I don't have any prejudice against colored. It's just that I wouldn't like to have one as a neighbor.
We would act to them as we would act to any other neighbors. We would be friendly towards them and speak to them and visit with them.
I wouldn't care to live in the community where the Negroes would be living.
I think that the majority of people here will accept things and believe, as I believe, that a good neighbor is not one whose color is white or black, just as a good citizen as such.
Mr. Myers and all the Negroes have right. I'm no better than them. They're as good as I am. But the only reason that Mr. Myers came into Levittown is to show people they could get here.
I just feel that they're within their legal rights to move in here. And if they move in and are law-abiding citizens, I have no complaints.
if more colored are allowed to move in, Levittown is going to go downhill.
I don't think that the Myers have anything to do with the property decreasing or increasing. I think it's purely a white problem, not a Negro problem.
The main issue is the right of these people to live like Americans as they choose and to be accepted as good neighbors.